Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Jack and Ian show. Today we have a very special guest joining us today, and that is going to be Mikey Varas, head coach of the U20 US national soccer team. And quickly before getting into coaching, Mikey actually played soccer for 4 years at the University of San Francisco, and he trained with the Santiago Wanderers in Chile. As he began to focus on coaching, he studied in Argentina, Italy, and Spain. And since then, Mikey has coached at Sacramento Republic. And then he took his talents to FC Dallas, where he coached the U16 Academy team in 2017. He then served as an assistant coach for FC Dallas for 3 seasons. And Mikey has worked with prominent US men's national team players, including Reggie Cannon, Jesus Ferreira, and MLS Young Player of the Year, Ricardo Pepi. Mikey, it's great to have you with us today, and welcome.
Thanks, Ian and Jack. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. And first off, as many of our viewers know, you were selected as the coach of the U20 US Youth National Team. And so I was just wondering if you could just take a few moments to just tell us a little bit about what that means to you.
No, obviously, it's a huge honor to represent your country at any level or for anything. And I was never part of the youth national team system, but to be able to coach these players and to be able to help the U.S. qualify for the next U20 World Cup, like I said, it's an honor. It fills me with pride, and it obviously fills me with a ton of motivation to make sure that I do a good job for the country.
Sure. And one thing that I've always been interested in when looking at club coaches versus international coaches is just the differences in not only how much time you have, but just the fact that you're coaching, I guess for you, younger players. And so I'm just curious, how's coaching been different, because you've worked with FC Dallas as an assistant coach and now you're working as the head coach of a youth team. How has it been different coaching club versus country?
Well, the first difference is logistical, where at the club level, you're with the players day in, day out for 40 something odd weeks a year. At the national team level, it's camp basis. So prior to the qualifiers coming up in the summer, I think we're going to have 3 camps total. And those camps will range anywhere from between 5 to 10 days. So your exposure with the players is less. You don't have as much of a possibility to stimulate them on that daily level. In terms of the difference between FC Dallas and the U20 team, it's not as big a difference as many would think, because almost all of the players on the U20 team are professionals at this point, and playing for MLS clubs or playing in Europe. The difference is they're all the exact same age. So they're all very young professionals. Where at FC Dallas, we had experiences with the same age group. So we had very young players, but we also had players like Reto Ziegler, who, when we first got promoted, was 32 years old and had played in, I believe, 2 World Cups. So the disparity, the difference in ages and experience is one of the big things. It's a lot more heterogeneous versus homogeneous.
Sure.
Yeah. Speaking about that experience, real quick, what is it like kind of leadership wise on the team? You mentioned it's 20 and under, this US team you're coaching. So what's that look like in terms of players stepping up at that young age? Have you seen that happen? What's that look like when players do that?
No, it's incredible. At the national team level, you're dealing with the most talented players in the country. So when you're very, very talented, you're usually very, very motivated, and you're usually very mature beyond your years. So, like I said earlier, even though they're 18 and 19, a lot of these guys have already had 2 to 3 seasons of professional football under their belt, whether it's at the MLS level or the USL Championship level. So they've been in locker rooms for the last 2 to 3 years with grown men. They've had great references in terms of what leadership and what professionalism looks like. So if I compare them to myself when I was 19, all of these guys are years beyond their actual age in terms of maturity and professionalism. So it's part of the reason it's such an honor to coach at this level, because just being able to interact with and help develop people who are so mature, so professional, and so driven. It's really an eye-opening experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Y'all have already played 3 games, at least in your tenure as this the coach of the U.S. 20 and under youth national team. Those games against Brazil, Colombia, and Mexico. What do you think y'all can improve upon off those games? What do y'all think y'all need to work to get better? What do y'all think y'all are already good at? Just talk about kind of your team's performance so far and what you've learned from it.
Well, it was an interesting circumstance because, 2 days before arriving in Mexico, I wasn't signed as the U20 coach. So everything happened really quick. I signed, and about a day and a half, 2 days later, we were on the plane going to Mexico. So the preparation period wasn't what it would usually be, where, a month and a half in advance, we would have had all the details ironed out. So going to this camp, the objectives were very clear. It was about getting to know the players and the staff, allowing the staff and the players to get to know myself. That was 1. 2, it was to lay a foundation for the culture of the group, because we don't get a lot of exposures with them. The team culture is going to be really, really important to the group's long-term success. The third one was to also plant some seeds of what the style of play is going, expectations will be for the group. And then the last one, the fourth one, was to compete as best as possible. So we arrived in Brazil and we had about 2 trainings, but we only had 1 training with the full team. And then we were playing Brazil. The other teams, they had much more of a preparation than we did. So at the end of the day, this trip was really about evaluating the individual player. And like I said, planting those seeds for the long-term success. What I really liked about the group is every game, the group improved, the group got better. So 4-0 against Brazil, nobody likes losing. You definitely don't like losing 4-0, but the team learned some important lessons about competing and about just being very intense for 90 minutes at the international level. The game against Colombia, the group demonstrated that they can be much more compact, much more intense, and they can just compete. Just the willingness to go out there and lay everything out on the line for 90 minutes. And we were beating Colombia 1-0 until the red card. And the group even showed a lot of courage to defend 25 minutes, a man down without conceding. Unfortunately, at 25 minutes and 3 seconds, right before the final whistle blew, we ended up conceding and drawing that game. And then against Mexico, in Mexico is always going to be difficult. Mexico's a top opponent, but the idea was, could we take that intensity that we brought in the Colombia game and add more football and have more of a protagonist view on how to control the game. And the Mexico game was very good. We ended up losing 2-1, but the team demonstrated much more balance in terms of being able to defend and attack. So I look at the end of the day, the group with hugely optimistic eyes. I saw a lot of performances individually that say this is a group that can qualify and do well in the World Cup. And then most importantly, I saw the group grow game in and game out. And if we keep that going through the next 2 or 3 camps, we're going to be hitting qualifiers flying, which is the main objective.
Right, for sure. Now you've already kind of touched on what it's like coaching this young new team, this new generation of Americans that are competing at a high soccer level. Are there any of those young players that we need to particularly watch out for? Or are there any that you think are particularly special on this team?
Yeah, no, I think there's plenty of special players at that age group. I think Gaga, the goalkeeper, in particular, he showed a lot of leadership throughout the week, and he did great for Chicago Fire this year as a 2004 starting in goal. He's got incredible potential. But in fairness, I could rattle off 5, 6, 7 guys that I think are really, really guys that are showing great potential. And for me, what's more important than the potential is what they actually do. So the improvement that I see between now and the next camp it's going to tell me a lot more about each of these guys than just my first snapshot assessment. And how I see them improve throughout the entire cycle, through the qualifiers and into the World Cup, is going to tell me even more. So I think maybe this question will be easier answered in about a year.
For sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so definitely. I mean, one thing as a I've played club soccer since I was 8 years old, and I've stopped since I've attended TCU. But it's crazy to think that there's people out there younger than us that are at this level and playing professionally and devoting their entire lives to it. I think it's just amazing how some of these young players can just be able to play at such a high level at such a young age. And I do want to talk about your time coaching these younger players, especially like in the MLS and during your time at FC Dallas. And one thing that's always interested me is just what specifically sets the FC Dallas Youth Academy apart, because in my opinion, it's one of the best youth academies, if not the best youth academy out of all of the MLS ones. So I'm just curious on your thoughts about what sets it apart from the rest.
Yeah, so I think there's a few things. One, FC Dallas has incredible facilities and incredible resources for player development in terms of locker rooms, fields, equipment. Everything's located in one place. Another thing that FC Dallas has is they're in a dense populated area with a lot of competitive athletes. So the Dallas-Fort Worth area is not only a hotbed for talented soccer players, but there's talented American football players, basketball players, track and field stars. It is a competitive place, and there's a lot of athletes here. So that's two. It has talent. And then three, what I think is really important is the people that are within the FC Dallas development pathway is everybody that works with the players. They give everything to the club and to the player. And FC Dallas is a special place in the sense that everyone who works there is doing more than they're asked. And it's something that I noticed right away when I moved here. And I thought to myself, what a special environment that is, where the people that work for the club love the club so much that they're willing to do much more than what their pay describes what they're supposed to be doing. And then I would say the last thing is the club DNA in terms of giving opportunities to young players is massive. So you can do all the first three things really well, but if you don't give opportunities for the young players to play at the professional level, then their development will not be maximized. And I think Oscar Pareja and Lucci and Lucci did an amazing job. Oscar kind of laying the foundation for playing young players, and Lucci really taking a big step forward in playing them even more. Has been probably the most underrated aspect of the FC Dallas success at the academy level.
Sure. And you obviously alluded to that in your response, but I think it can't be overstated how important it is to get these young players to actually give them the experience of playing those first team games instead of just playing the academy games, right? FC Dallas broke a record for the most number of academy players in a starting lineup against the Colorado Rapids recently, and so I mean it just goes to show that you need to kind of give these guys a chance, even though it might be strange having so many academy players in one team and having such a young lineup. It's so important and crucial to their development and also to the development of the team. And this kind of rolls into our next question about the MLS. And because the MLS has some strong academies, I'm just curious, what's your assessment of the progression of the MLS or soccer as a whole in the US? And what do you think about the progression it's made over the last 25 years and where it needs to go next?
It's been incredible. I think if you just look at the last Mexico US men's national team game right there in and of itself, that game is kind of a microcosm of how far football or soccer has come in the United States, and MLS is a huge part of that. MLS instituting academies, pushing for coaching education, working with the federation. The federation also focusing on coaching education and pushing the DA program for a long time, and having the youth national team set up. Both those organizations kind of working in concert together, for me, has really accelerated the development of football in our country in the last, especially I'd say the last 11, 12 years, really, really fast. And although we were always making progress, the last 10 to 12 years has been incredible progress. And that you can see that in the league right now from when you look at that game. How many players were in the Federation's DA program, graduated? Okay, how many players were coming from MLS academies that were in that game against Mexico? How many players are playing in MLS right now? Because that was a big topic for a long time, that, if you weren't playing in Europe, you couldn't have a competitive men's national team. And Greg and the staff and MLS and the Federation should have a lot of pride in how many players are playing in MLS that are competing at a high level internationally for the men's national team at this point. And the last thing is the coaching, the courage of the coaches in MLS. It's not just FC Dallas, it's not just Philadelphia Union, but it's coaches across the league who are willing to play these young players now and put their faith in them when their jobs rely on wins and losses. I think it's been incredible progress, and it's really important right now that we don't rest on our laurels, because it's a moment where we can all have a quick reflection and say, wow, we've come a long way. This is an incredible moment. And the next step is either you get comfortable and you relax a little bit, or you keep pushing the envelope. And I think if we keep pushing the envelope, the best is yet to come.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah. And again, I mean, the development of soccer in the US has been amazing over the last 25 years that the MLS has, been instituted. And so I can only see things going up from here. So
yeah, and you mentioned it a second ago, that game, the United States against Mexico. I mean, that was a massive game. You talked about a little bit about its significance, but how much of an impact do you think that will have on this U.S. men's national team going forward? I mean, we hadn't beaten Mexico in 8 years. I think I'm right on that, but we hadn't beaten them in 8 years, I'm fairly certain, and that was the first time. So how much did that mean just to get a win there?
Well, Jack, just to clarify, what was so important about that is we've actually beat them 3 times in a row now. Because if you count if you count the Nations League and the Gold Cup finals, we beat them. But those games were, if you saw those games, a neutral fan would say, oh, Mexico played better football, were more proactive in the game. The U.S. found a way to win, which is an amazing attribute Americans and the U.S. national team has always had, and something we should never give up. But This last game was so different because the U.S. pushed the game against Mexico the entire time. And then on top of that, neither nation has lost to the other 3 times in a row. I think in like 40 or 50 years. It's been something really long. So it was a really, really important game. And my feeling after that game was, wow, the men's team has like touched a level that we haven't touched before, in terms of intensity, in terms of being proactive, in terms of the football that was played with the ball, but also the grit and the sacrifice that was played without it. And for me now that we've touched that level, it's going to be really important that we try to be consistent at that level. Because if we are able to be consistent at that level, then you're going to see something really special from this group of players heading into the rest of qualifiers and into the World Cup. But it's an absolutely massive game, and I think it'll be a point in history that a lot of us will look back on and say that was really important.
For sure. Yeah, I think I don't know where I saw that 8 years thing. I was like, that seems off, but okay. I was like, that would explain the significance of it for sure. Yeah. But I mean, just getting 3 wins in a row also, I mean, that's just momentum right there.
100%.
moving forward, like you said. So I guess also, these last few years, COVID's been a thing. Obviously, you've been coaching through that. What has that been like? What had that been like, kind of having to navigate all of that and then playing at empty stadiums? What was that? What was your experience kind of with that?
Well, I think for everybody, it was so novel. It was something that nobody expected and nobody was really prepared for. And that goes beyond just, professional football. I think that's every person in every community felt the impact of COVID. From a professional football standpoint, there was an adjustment period because we couldn't train for a while. So we were needing to send videos to the players of technical exercises, of fitness exercises for them to do on their own. And then after that, the next step was we were training, but we were training in isolation. So we were doing individual trainings for players. Then it was small groups. Then we were with the full team. And then we were playing in empty stadiums. And I think everybody was kind of wondering how that was going to go. And it was a little bit strange because you're used to hearing a crowd and you're used to hearing the hecklers and you're used to hearing just noise. And then all of a sudden you could hear everything the players were saying, you could hear everything the coaches were saying. But at the end of the day, it's kind of strange that it's not strange really because this is how human history is, but we adapt. And a few games in, you stop noticing that and that becomes the new normal. And at the end of the day, as soon as that whistle blows, you want to win just as much because you're competing and these guys are competitors. This is what they've done their whole lives. And you guys know in your club days you played in front of sometimes nobody, a few parents, a few spectators, and you still wanted to win and you still gave it your all and you still got into the flow of the game. But I think I didn't really realize the impact of COVID until fans came back. And when fans came back and you kind of started looking around and going, oh, wow, there's a lot of noise here. That's when you were really like, oh, wow, okay. I understand that what just happened was very different.
Sure.
Yes, for sure.
Anyways, we do want to move on to our next segment, and I know Jack will kick this one off, but we're gonna ask you a few rapid fire questions. So it's time to think quick on your feet here.
No problem.
Yes. So which would you rather score, a hat trick or a game-winning goal?
Game-winning goal.
There you go. Messi or Ronaldo?
Messi.
All right. Who is the most talented player that you've coached?
Ricardo Pepi.
All right. And then lastly, so you have a penalty in the last minute. Who takes it? Your brother or yourself?
Me.
You? Yeah.
Yes.
That sounds like the right answer.
No doubt.
Yeah. There you go. Trust in yourself with that. There you go. Two more. What's your go-to candy?
I don't eat a lot of candy, but if I do, it's Reese's Buttercups.
There you go. And then last one, you got a favorite gas station food on a road trip?
Gas station food?
On a road trip, like you stop at a gas station, you get a snack for the road. What would you go for?
It would definitely be Miss Vicky's jalapeno oven baked chips.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Those are fantastic. Yeah. Anyways, Mikey, we do want to be respectful of your time, but it was fantastic having you on the show today, and just thank you so much for giving us some of your time. We really appreciate it.
I appreciate you guys, and I really like that you guys have such passion for football, that you guys want to do these kind of projects, and any way I can ever support. I'm always for anybody who wants to help the game and help football move forward. Definitely.
And again, anyways, thank you so much for joining us today. For the viewers at home, we really appreciate your support. And Jack and I will be back with another episode next Tuesday. And if you haven't already, make sure to follow us on Instagram and check us out on platforms including YouTube and Spotify for other episodes. Until then, we'll see you next time. See you later.
Thank you.